All right, folks, it's time. It's a Wednesday night. Buddy Martin Show is back on the air. We have things to talk about, like what's the big story this year in spring football for the Gators? That plus, do the Florida Gators have enough money to compete? Well, the man who helps raise some of that money for Florida Victorious, Freddy Weeby, is here tonight and will tell us his thoughts about that. Plus, David Moulton, much more coming your way tonight, right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Tell your friends and neighbors the Buddy Martin Show is now officially on the air.
Time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. It's Wednesday night. Normally we have sweet and sour night, but sweet is off, but sour is here. And also Freddy Weeby, who is probably the most influential man right now in terms of raising money for the Florida Victorious group, is one-on-one with us tonight. I would say in depth, but it's only about 15 minutes. Freddie was off and running today. He's the entrepreneur that started the Steve Spurrier restaurant, Steve Spurrier Grand Grill. You know him from that. He's raising money. He's got some interesting thoughts like, how much does it take, and is all they care about your money? Let's be honest. We think about that. Is that really what they want? A lot of Gator fans are saying like, well, I give them my money. I buy season tickets. I go to the games. You know, what more can I do? Well, there are other things you can do, and Freddie Weeby will tell us about that. So if you would gather around tonight, folks, and tell your friends and neighbors to dial us in and give us your comments about that. We want to get your participation. We'll be talking more and more about these things in the near future. Had a very good conversation last night about the values of the system and about the money with our group of friends, and we'll continue to do that. This, of course, is spring practice week. Let's get serious now. It's time. Testing some of these theories and checking out some of these new hires, new recruits. I heard today a very good report by a guy, Zach Goodall, on the Feinbaum show about this is Napier's team. It's like 80% all his recruits. And Zach did a very good job today on that. We'll talk about that's one of his storylines. So we got new coaches. We got some quarterbacks to talk about. And we still got basketball, and we still got a little baseball going on. So busy spring, but the main theme around here has always been football. So we'll say good evening to David Baldoff. Our friend, Dilly Dilly, back to you. Vander. How many of you know what that means, Dilly Dilly? Probably not too many anymore. It used to be in the old days. That was the sign-on signal. How many of you know that? We've probably been, doing this 6 years? Yeah, that seems to be still popular. David was one of the original guys. So we're going to do this. We've got Freddy Weeby standing by. We don't want to waste any time. Then we'll get a little campus report from Kyle Curtis, going by correspondence, who's watching things on campus. And then we got David Moulton tonight. He always puts in perspective. Allie's taking the night off, but, David always brings his A game, and we'll get his take. Big story tonight is still Nick Saban stepping aside, but he did. Now it comes out why he did it. Do you know? It's a little bit shocking. So is it about money? Well, not always, but because Nick had plenty of that. But all that's coming your way right now. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and get our friend Freddy Weeby here and get started on this interview tonight. In fact, let's hear from our friends David Moulton first. Come back with Freddy Weeby. Jeffrey Melton. Jeffrey, you do a show where you get asked a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms, that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get shuffled off to somebody else. You get to see a Meldon, and that's good to know because a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff, like me. And maybe you can coach us through. So Meldon Law, they won't back down. They will take your questions about your case if you have a question.
Yes, whether it's a new case or an existing case, give us a call. We'd be glad to go over it with you. There's no charge to review your case with you, and a lot of times it makes good sense just to get a second opinion.
Good stuff from Meldon Law. They don't back down, but they will give you a second opinion. All the conversation seems to be about money these days, and it was on our program Tuesday night. A lot of our guys talking about it, and really, to be honest with you, nobody really knows much about the money situation, who's making what or how much is coming in. But I know one thing. A guy who's going to find out is right here with me today on the program, and a guy that I have a great regard for his organizational skills. He's done a fantastic job at Spurrier's, really the founder of it. And now I don't know why, folks. He must be loony in the head. Who would take a job like this as revenue? Is this right? Chief Revenue Officer of, let me get the title right. Chief Revenue Officer of...
Director of Revenue, buddy. How are you?
All right, Fred. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Director of Revenues for the fundraising group. And Freddie, congratulations. Thanks for taking that on, because everybody I talked to last night said, well, if anybody can do it, Freddie can do it. So you're managing a big multi-million-dollar operation. A lot of people know you, some don't. So for those that don't, before we get into it, just tell people who Freddy Weeby is.
Freddie is Freddie. I'm a Gator fan. Love my Gators. I want us to win, just like every fan out there. And if I can take my previous experience, my networking connections, my love of salesmanship and community, and give it to the Florida Victorious, and that's the route to help the Gators win. That's what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. I love my Gators, and I want to win as much as every fan does out there. And in today's world, it's going to take some money, and I put a team together that understands that can go out and sell, and we're going to go after the corporate world and the businesses in the entire state. We have an abundance of businesses that are Gator related, and even if you're not a Gator related, and the constituents are Gators, you could be a Hurricane or Seminole or Knight business owner and alumni, but if your customers are Gator fans, which there's millions of them in the state, we are going to be the route to connect you with those fans and get you more business as well.
That's a great point about the fact that you don't have to just be a Gator, but your fans are, you want to reach them, and so I get that. Let me ask you, of all the things you're doing now, and you got plenty, of course, Freddie, you resigned as the founder of Spurrier's Ground Grill, right? You're not doing that anymore, right? Wrong.
I love Spurrier's. I love Spurrier's Ground Grill. We've built an amazing business, one of the most successful coaches in America, and built a legacy place for him, and created a model that works for his reputation, for the restaurant reputation. And today we're one of the most successful restaurants in the state because of doing our homework right, doing the research, and surrounding it by good people and good food. And that's what successful restaurants all about.
It's been hugely successful. As you know, if anybody's eaten there, if you hadn't, you need to. It's a special place for not just the food and the place, but the atmosphere. And it's huge asset at the University of Florida, too. Freddie, let me just jumpstart you with a couple of questions here on this short interview, because we need to get this again and learn more about what this is all about, this money part. We're learning it. Of all the things you're doing right now, what is your number one challenge?
Ooh, that's a good question. Biggest challenge in the 90 days I've faced is former players and coaches embracing NIL. And really, when I say embracing, for the Gators to win, this has to happen. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for their financial support. We just want their blessing that this is the new way of college sports, all sports, not just football. For the Gators to win, the landscape has changed. And yes, they did not get money when they were playing. Yes, the amounts have changed, but this is today's world. It's completely different. Back when some of these athletes played, for example, when Coach was coaching us here in Gainesville in the 90s, I went back and looked at this. Price of beer in the swamp was $2.50. It didn't exist outside, right? But today it's $16. It's different. And some people can't embrace the difference. Today's world is different than 10, 15, 20, 10, 5 years ago. And those former players have to embrace. And if they're loyal to their Gators and they want them to win, they need to support us. And again, money is great. But even if they just stand up and say, hey, support NIL, that's the new way of winning, that's a big win. And that's kind of my biggest obstacle today is convincing those former players that NIL is a good thing and that negative aura around it will go away once they commit to that.
Kind of answered the next question, sort of, by what you said, which is to say, people get tired of getting hit up for money. Excuse me. And there's a handful of them get hit up all the time. There's also the danger of the perception that all the University of Florida wants from me is my money. I've given them my life for 45 years. I've sent my children there. I've supported the program. I bought season tickets for 35 years. And I'm chopped liver. Now they want more money from me. How do you, now as the new chief revenue officer, is that correct? At Florida Victorious, the money guy. How do you be careful about not hitting people upside the head with the checkbook every day?
Again, it's not really all about money either. I mean, just the embracement of NIL is enough today. It is at the end, you have to collect money. And we're not asking, there's a perception out there that it's $1,000 or $10,000 and athletes cost this and that. The reality is if 500,000 fans today donate $10 each, that's enough money to to reach our goals and help us win. You can subscribe for $15, $25. It's not a lot of money to ask for. But even if you can't donate money, you can just support NIL and help us change the notion that this is like positive thing. It's the way college sports are today, and it's not just in Gainesville.
Yeah, and that's what you have to get. Excuse me if I'm interrupting. That's what we have to get over, because we're all the same thing. I'm not paying some guy to play football. This is the way it is today. Everything's changed. So you have to either embrace it or get out, because no one's going to say, "Oh, we're going to stop paying our players," because you can't do that because they can go across the street and make a lot of money. It's a free market, Freddie.
Correct. And, I hear a lot of the rules are not there and the Wild West and all that. It is what it is. The Supreme Court voted this in a few years back, and it's not changing. And this year is an election year, so you're not going to get any movement from the Congress till after elections. And I'm sure change will come. And as change comes, we'll pivot with it. What's not going to change is the fact that players are getting compensated, and it takes money in today's world. And those former players and every fan that's against it needs to realize this is the new way of college sports. And it's not if we embrace it, it's when we embrace it. So I go back to the days of free agency in NFL. I talked to a few friends. It took 4 years for folks to embrace free agency in the NFL. And after 4 years, it was the norm. And today, it's no big deal. It is what it is. And that's kind of where we're heading. And the less we can shorten that distance and accept and embrace NIL and what it is for college sports today, NIL is implementing innovative ideas with relentless teamwork to help the student athletes. So student athletes need that support, and it's going to take all of the fans to support that.
Freddy Weeby, among other things, he's the revenue guy at Florida Victorious, the guy who was out there talking money, and is what it's about. There's no doubt about it. If you want to play ball, you want to have a team, you want to sport, you're going to have money. And really, I'll be honest with you, this has been discussed a lot. Who could this person be to lead them out of the hinterlands and back on the right track after the rough start they had with NIL? And your name came up, and I thought, not just because I know you've been my friend for a number of years, that's one guy that can do it right there. There aren't many. If I can think of any others, Freddy Weeby, if he buys in this deal, he'll figure it out and he'll make it sense out of it, which is what it needs. There's so many other things I want to talk about. We won't get to today, like getting the players better introduced to the public so that people will be willing to say, yeah, I'll invest in this guy. He sounds good. I'll go, it's all about, a friend of mine today, Rob Brown, he was talking money last night. He was a money manager because of the way he addressed things. And he said, look, that guy coming in the front door for the last 20 years that you haven't spoke to, he may have a lot of money one day to spend. You better be nice to him or whatever. As a matter of fact, someone called in and said, you know what, I want Rob to handle my money. It's about the bedside manner, as they call it in medicine, of the people. So it's a delicate balance. You are one guy who's done really well with that, and I hope it does work. But here's the thing I want to get to. You addressed this to me the other day personally. We're talking about this notion that Florida's broke. That was the big tagline, for a bunch of bloggers and different people, and said they can't afford it. They spent their money on a shot, and they screwed it up. They're broke. So, and you said to me,
I said to you, that's fake news. It's completely wrong. It's not about me either. We have a team of 11 that have worked very hard. Florida Victorious was initiated in April. We're approaching 1 year. We're less than a year old. And they've done a great job. They're in the top 10 in the country. They've done amazing. And I'm not sure where this broke thing came from. Again, this media, the article was in Orlando Sentinel. And as the way media has flipped today to everyone takes pieces of it and writes their own notion of it and changes the context of it. I think most people understand that. For those that don't, that is fake news. I can tell you and guarantee you things are good with the Florida Victorious. We've raised millions of dollars. We have NIL deals for over 200 Gator athletes. We're financially healthy, but we cannot be complacent, and we have to continue the notion to get more. And to get more, we cannot go after the donor base that supported so far the Florida Victorious. We have to go after the business community and the fans. You can subscribe. You can, of course, still donate, but you can also now do corporate sponsorships. Go to floridavictorious.com, click on the button. I'll call you. My team will call you, and we'll work out a notion of an ROI for your business to help your business grow. At the same time, you help us back and help the Gators win.
Interesting stuff there. Speaking of media and how things get so-called taken out of context, you had a little experience of that recently, although I'm not sure how it was taken out of context. But you're a good friend of mine, Steve Spurrier, your business partner, said some things last week that people consider to be critical. And, of course, those of us who know Steve's always going to roll out what he thinks, and he wasn't reckless with it, but it didn't set well with some people. And it sort of ruminated there a couple of days, and Steve got a little concerned maybe it was misinterpreted. I won't say he walked it back because he never walks anything back, but he came on the show Monday and tried to explain what he meant. And basically it was this, that, look, I couldn't do it that way with all those guys. I wouldn't know, how to handle all those people. They're talking about the analysts. He said Florida has 62 analysts. That's more than anybody in the SEC. He said his caveat was, well, I guess everybody's doing it. Alabama, they're all doing it. So if you're doing it in the SEC, I guess that's the deal. But it's a tough place for a coach to be in because he's an ambassador. You play by Florida. He's also a straight shooter, but the media always has been. So I know you talked to him about that. You want to share anything?
I mean, all I can tell you is no one loves the Gators and supports the Gators more than Steve Spurrier. He's a big Gator by heart. He cares. And sometimes he will say his mind and speaks his mind, and he did. But if you really break it down, this is Freddie's opinion, and you read the article in the Jacksonville newspaper, the article was fair. And Coach said what he said. Now, if you read the 19 other articles out there and posts and podcasts and mentions. They took pieces from that article and expose what they wanted to expose. I call them clickbaiters. They just want to get clicks for their newspapers and articles. And just like every other place you read lately, you have to look behind that and besides that. And you have to look on top of that, because at the end of the day, the article, coach did not say anything wrong. When he was coaching, he didn't have this many analysts, and it's different today. And it's not something he's used to, and he's expressing his concern. That's not who I am. That's not what I did. But today's world has changed, and I think you said it, buddy. Most schools have more than analysts than they did 10, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, and that's not going to change. That's the new way of doing football. It's following, I think, the professional sports, and that's what it is. Whether we have 40 or 50 or 60, if that's what's needed, that's fine. At the end of the day, it's about winning, and as long as they win, I think all that will go away. But if you read the article was fair. If you read the context switching, flipping, and pieces to get more clickbaits, those people achieve their goals as well.
May the HBC always be the HBC, though, whatever he does. All right, thanks very much, Freddy Weeby. Some interesting stuff there. I know it's not the type of thing that's sexy. It doesn't make clickbait, but it's necessary to know information for everybody, including the people who back it, the people who go to school, University of Florida, and follow the program every day and live it, and have been bringing their money there for a while. And that would be guys like this. Kyle Curtis, our intrepid reporter for Gator Bay. Good evening to you, Kyle. How you doing?
How are we doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to see you again. What you been doing? You've been kind of hopping around. I'm watching baseball. I know you're one of your favorite sports there. And how about Caglione, man?
Yeah, Caglione's been awesome. And I have to tell you, buddy, last night I went to the Gator basketball game, and that was one of the I've spent most of my career in the press box as in the football stadium. But I think that as a student, that was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had, and probably the best send-off I could ask for a senior night and last home basketball game. So last night was incredible, and baseball looks great. Caglione's awesome. So we're excited heading into this the back end of the spring for sure.
Well, let's put that on hold for a second and talk about what happened last night. I mean, they crushed Alabama, very, very good Alabama team. They rolled up, 108 points, a team that people were – talk about the mood of the student body after the incident that happened in Tuscaloosa and what it was like there among the Gator fans. And talk about what we couldn't tell watching on TV. Talk about what that was like and what it felt like you as a student and what you saw and heard happening in that game.
Yeah, so for me, we went out. I think we got out there at around 2 or 3 o'clock, and the game obviously tipped off at 7. And the line to the student section was all the way around, almost reaching to the front of the Bull Gator. So I think that just shows the investment of the student body into this basketball team. And then getting into the stadium, the electricity was just unmatched. That was my first time ever being able to sit in the rowdy section. So that was absolutely phenomenal. And then when it came to the basketball team, this team is special because there are so many different guys who are able to step up and be the guy. When it comes to, a March Madness team, my saying has always been, you need a guy in the tournament or else you're not going to be able, you need a guy who's going to be able to get a bucket at the end of the game. And I think that this Florida team has, 2 or 3 guys that they can look to and say, all right, let's go get a bucket. And last night it was Will Richards. Throughout the whole game, the intensity stayed the same. They came out the second half with the same exact intensity they came in to start the game, which has been, probably their biggest fault throughout the year this far, is being able to finish games. So being able to finish the game in the fashion they did against a team the caliber of Alabama with the talent that they have, even with, probably the player of the year, runner-up player of the year, and Mark Sears scoring 35. It was just incredible being able to see, not only the Gator Nation and fans being able to ignite the O-Dome, but also, you know, everyone being able to play together and come together and, you know, come together and get a massive win on senior night for a bunch of different guys. It was just cool. It was a massive win for Todd Golden, and I think it kind of cemented what good hire it was for Scott Strickland.
Well, the O-Dome's back, looks like, and the way they're rocking now, and the fans are like they used to be. People talk about it being like the old days. So that's important. Of course, it's over now, but I mean, it was a good. But they have a record 15-1 at home or something. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think it was 14-1, 14-1, but it was. I saw a few tweets, you know, that especially from some of the journalists who have covered the team for a long time, saying that they hadn't seen the O-Dome like that in 10 plus years since, you know, the Billy Donovan days. So, you know, being able to be there for that, it's something I'll never forget. And being, you know, obviously the football season didn't go the way that I wanted it to my senior year. But, you know, I think that was a nice little bow on top for my senior year. And it's a game I'll always remember for sure.
Well, you switched the subject over now. Let's go to it. One of the topics of tonight's show, and we'll be joined by David Moulton here shortly, is spring football, which starts Thursday. A lot of difference. I saw a stat today. I think it was Zach Goodall, who was really good on Feinbaum's show today, talking about the number of Billy Napier players are on the roster. I think it was like 80% or something, and there's only like 15 or 16 Moulton players left. So clearly it is Billy's team now. And all the storylines, I want you to dig into one here. One of the ones you can talk about anyone you want to. You know, we can go with the new defensive coordinators, the new offensive coordinators, the quarterbacks, whatever. But and the obvious one, DJ Lagway, we're all going to look for him. But tell me the storyline as a guy who covers spring football. I hope he'll be back out there again this year, covering him. And what you would be looking for, Kyle.
So I think the biggest storyline this year is the fact that we have Graham Mertz coming back, and that this is the first time that we're going to have a starting quarterback coming back to the University of Florida, who has had starting experience since 2020. You know, Graham Mertz, obviously, there was a lot of controversy. I know you, buddy, we all talked about last year around this time whether or not, you know, Graham Mertz was going to be able to live up to the hype, being able to step into that kind of a role into an SEC program with a new coach and stuff like that. I think being able to, you know, get his feet wet in the system and being able to know the players around him and stuff like that is going to be massive. Getting a whole nother spring under his belt. I just think that, you know, he has definitely emerged as the leader of this team, and being able to establish himself and knowing into the spring that you already have your guy and you're going to build around this guy, and you know what he's capable of doing is massive. On the other side, I mean, there's still a lot of question marks when it comes to, you know, we lost Princely Emmanuel to Ole Miss on the defensive end. We lost Etienne, obviously, in the running back room.
That hurts.
So there's obviously a few holes that we need to you know, fill in, or you know, we don't know who's going to step in, but he brought in people. And we had a great recruiting class. So, you know, being able to find guys who are able to step in and seeing who emerges himself as the, you know, top prospects in the spring class is or in the spring practice is going to be exciting, because last year it was easy to see that Eugene Wilson had a massive step on a lot of those other receivers. So being able to find a guy like that, you know, who's a freshman caliber guy that's able to just come in and make an impact is going to be massive. But I think the biggest storyline is definitely going to be how Graham Mertz is going to step in as the known leader of this team, and being able to come in and kind of take hold and hopefully lead everyone else behind him.
Yeah, incumbent quarterback. Yeah, we all know that deep down inside, the one we want to know about is the new guy, the all-world player, even David Moulton, like me, a crusty old guy who doesn't know, you know, that much about the team daily, but there's a lot of excitement about this, and this will be one of the main storylines. And let's go to David and see what he's got going. Good evening to you, David. How you doing?
I'm good, guys. What's up?
How we doing?
Good, Kyle. How you been?
Another day in paradise, Mr. Moulton. Another day in paradise.
Well, okay, David. First of all, hope life is going good for you these days. Haven't talked to you in a little bit, and glad to have you back on the program. Would you care to jump in now on these storylines for spring? And the tempting one, obviously, is the quarterback. There are other important ones like the cast of coaches. If you're going up there Thursday, if you aren't, I know, but you are, what would be the 2 or 3 storylines that would grab your attention, David?
I'd only be interested in one storyline. It's what Spurrier had to say last week.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else matters.
Okay.
To me, buddy, it reminded me, I was in a car in November of 2006 driving to dinner in Tuscaloosa, and I heard Gene Stallings live on Feinbaum. Feinbaum wasn't national yet. And we were going to dinner, and Gene Stallings on Feinbaum said, basically, I'm tired of Alabama being mediocre. I don't understand why we're 6-5. And we all looked at one another in the car and said, wow, the only living Alabama coach with a national championship just said that on Feinbaum. And I'll bet he's been thinking about that for weeks. I'll bet you Shula's got to win tomorrow, the Iron Bowl, or he gone. And guess what? He lost, and he gone. And when I heard Spurrier say that, I went, oh, snap. Because we've all said it. We may not have put those words exactly in the same order, but we've said that 18 different ways, all of us. Kyle, me, you, Allie, everybody you've had on here have all said that. We don't mean squat. He said it. That's a 5-alarm fire. Nothing else matters to me.
Fair enough. And
nothing else.
And it's very understandable, the perception. Let me say this, and I'm not going to be the
Perception.
Well, the reason I said that, David, is
this
David,
isn't Gator bait. This
okay,
is
David,
Steve Spurrier.
Let me speak about one thing. I talked to him 5 times since yesterday. Not that I know everything. I don't, and I understand. I agree with you. The element of shock was there. That's why I called him at the weekend and said, is this what you said? And then I have an interview. I played it twice this week. And he does not back down, but he also wants to explain what he was saying. You're right. It was surprising, if not shocking in some regards. He didn't think it was because he thought he was just set. He thought he was just.
To him, it's obvious. To him, it's the truth.
Yeah.
And so, quite frankly, whatever Napier and company are saying doesn't mean crap.
They haven't really said much of anything,
Steve, but you know what I mean. Steve Spurrier, after a year and a half, 2 years, has assessed the program, and he did it very succinctly. All right. Everything else between now and Miami means nothing, and I mean it. I mean, to the point where, buddy, I don't know why I have to keep coming on every week. Nothing matters. Injuries. The only thing between here and Miami is the only thing that matters is injuries. Everything else is crap.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to play this interview for a third time. I played it twice already, but and I think I get what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you. And we had literally, he called me again today. It's the 5th phone call in 3 days from Steve. I've never had that. He doesn't want to sound too harsh. Of course, he is the head ball coach, and he says what he thinks. So I'll just leave that out there and let everybody else decide about it. I don't know, Kyle, what you're thinking on it was. And I guess maybe because I've talked to him so many times about it and not making excuses, nor am I asking him to take it back. I'm glad he's not going to. Kyle, between us, what's your perception on what Steve said about? And he pointed out the main thing that bothered him was the number of coaches. That's what got him. He didn't back it down, but he said, obviously that didn't, he said that's the way they do it today. Florida has 62 analysts. Do you know that, David? 62. And Steve apparently counted them. And so consequently, he says, I just can't do it that way. But he says, apparently that's how it's being done. Now, there's another caveat to this story, David. I want to get to you on this because some stuff came out about Nick Saban today that was, he really knew this was coming. It was a somewhat premeditated decision. But Kyle, you go first, and I'll get David's take on the other thing.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, I completely agree, especially as a student. You know, the majority of the student body is not tracking what's going on in spring practice. You know, how many throws Graham Mertz made across the middle to, you know, Eugene Wilson or whoever it may be. You know, you care about the win and loss column. You care about the win and loss column, and I think now you're just getting to the point where we've had since the Urban Meyer era, since, you know, we've had 3-4 coaches who have kind of been a swing and a miss. And now you're just getting to the point where it's like, all right, are we really moving forward, or are we kind of in neutral or maybe even reverse? So I completely agree that it comes down to wins and losses. And I don't know if Billy Napier was just put into a super bad situation where, you know, the program's already, you know, not running the way it should be. And now we're expanding the SEC. We're getting these super hard schedules. We're doing all of this, and we're just being set up for failure. You can make that point, and then you can also make the point that, you know, we're the University of Florida, and no matter who we're playing, that we should get 9 to 10 wins a season. So,
see, and I took it differently in this sense. I don't think Steve was talking about wins and losses. I think he was talking just very simply. Sometimes the way he ran his offense, he could beat you with 6 plays out of the playbook and run them all day. And I just thought that he was saying, well, after 2 years, there's a lot of us that are wondering basically, what the heck's going on? That's okay. That to me is not wins and losses. That to me is the program organized? Is it well run? Do they look decent consistently on the field? I mean, you can look decent and lose, but I just think Steve succinctly summed up what all of us have been thinking and saying for 2 years. We're wondering what the heck is going on here. That's all he said. He goes, after 2 years, we're just wondering, you know, do we have our ducks in a row? Are we going in the right direction? What's going on? That's the way I took it. And after 2 years, you should at least be going forward. Everybody should know, well, we're not where we want to get yet, but we are going in the right direction. And I thought he said, well, I don't know. Are we in neutral? Where are we go? What are we doing? That's the way I took it. And that, to me, was damning.
Okay, fair enough. And
Well,
so now,
I think at the end of the day, I mean, it goes back to the wins and losses. That's how, at the end of the day, they're going to be judged. And then being able to, especially with, you see how Todd Golden has been able to, you know, revamp his program within the matter of 2-3 years. A lot of people were expecting that's how Billy Napier was going to come in, and not saying that football, you know, is the same transformation as basketball. I think that football takes a little bit more time to be able to, you know, develop a culture and being able to establish, you know, basically how you run your program and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the average fan is just going to be able, they're going to judge it off of wins and losses, and you can look at it based off of how you run your offense and defense and how they look on the field and stuff like that. And I completely agree. But, you know, like you were saying, I think that we have been in a state of neutral for the past 2 to 3 years, where it's, you know, there hasn't been much of an improvement or really much of a digression. It's kind of, you know, you get what you expect, really.
David, a lot of people want to hear what you got to say. Since we're talking about this so much, and I guess maybe I'm trying not to do the same show every night, I'm going to roll just 90 seconds or whatever of Spurrier's comments that he said, and then you can react to that too. He didn't go into the whole thing, but ostensibly, here's what Steve was talking about, and a little surprised that people were upset about it, and apparently they were. Over the weekend, we had a little news coming in here and there, and people talking about what's going on in Gainesville and with the Gators and with the head coach. And a lot of information gets passed around. You wonder sometimes where it all comes from, and you wonder exactly how accurate it is. But one guy who's never backed down on what he said, that's as I've known him, is Steve Spurrier. The coach, there was some comments over the weekend that were attributed to you, which you didn't back down from. But I think you said you'd like to clarify these. You like me to read some of these comments first?
Yeah, go ahead and read a couple of them.
All right. So Billy Napier is a good guy who works his tail off. I like Billy, good family man, but we do wish the organization was a little bit more tidy. There's a feeling around the Gators of what the heck are we doing? There's a lot of questions that don't have the answers to.
Okay.
Did you say that?
I probably did. What I did say is what most of the fans are saying. I think that's the bottom line. But go ahead and I may say something like that. But, nowadays, almost all of these SEC football programs have 40 to 50 or more people working there. I think we got 62. I think we got more than anybody. So that would drive me crazy. I just mentally don't think you need that many, but all the schools seem to have just about that many. So maybe that's the new thing nowadays. And if you got 60 or so and you're winning big every year, then no one would say a word about that, I guess. But anyway, that's just me talking about too many people around. But most schools have it, so maybe that's just the way it is nowadays.
All right, there's the ambassador of the University of Florida talking about it. There's what he said. And David, you can react to it then if you'd like. And then I want to talk about Saban, because some of the very things we talked about are Steve's admitting, well, maybe this is the new way. I don't understand it. That's pretty much kind of what Saban said.
I also think what he was saying at the very beginning, before he said, well, maybe this is how everybody's doing it. What I thought he was thinly saying was, boy, you got that many people, then why is it that our special teams suck? Why is it that our strength and conditioning doesn't seem to be league average, never mind better than that? Why is it we have so many problems getting the right personnel onto the field in a timely fashion? Okay, maybe it's because we have 62. Maybe it's just because we don't have our ducks lined up in a row. That's what I think he's saying. He's like, if you got this great big infrastructure, then why isn't the foundation stronger?
That's kind of what we all wish he was saying, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I see what Coach Spurrier is saying. I feel like Coach Spurrier was a guy who was very hands-on, being able to. He wanted to be in control of everything, and I think that what he was saying is, when you have that many guys, it's impossible to be able to quality control every single person. So, kind of what Mr. Moulton was saying, being able to control, special teams, strength and conditioning, defensive.
But Steve wasn't hands-on everywhere. Steve would if he trusted the defensive coordinator, he'd let him go. Okay, during the week, he would say some things to him, come up with a game plan. I think maybe we need to go at him this way. But he trusted Stoops to do his thing, and others. Steve though was organized. He was simple in some ways, but he was very organized. I mean, you never, ever watched a Florida game from day one under him and didn't go, wow, this group's got their act together. They know what they're doing. They got a rhyme and a reason. All right. I just think he looks at what's going on right now and he's like, what the heck? And then we got all these people. I mean, we damn near have one analyst per player.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Moulton. The fact, I think that it's a completely different era, not only in coaches, but in the fact of players too, that, this leads into Buddy's point on Nick Saban, on how I think I saw a quote on Nick Saban today that, the guys are more focused on when can I play and how much money am I going to get paid?
Exactly.
Do you think that I mean, I think that affects how you're going to be coached and the way that you take coaching. So if, say that you get coached hard in one drill, you could be like, all right, screw this. I don't like you. I don't like this situation. And before you know it, that's when you get a toxic locker room and stuff like that. And I just don't think that that's, I don't know. It was a different, I think it was a different era back then. And the way that players were coached and the way that the game was brought up was a little bit different. And it's just hard to compare two different, it's tough. It's tough.
Well,
really good players love to be coached, and they prefer to be coached hard than soft. You have to just pick the right players. There's no doubt, though. Okay, nowadays it's more about playing time, and it's about how much am I going to get paid to things that you couldn't transfer 5 years ago the way you can transfer now. Never mind, we didn't have blatantly open pay for play. That was done quietly in a brown paper bag in the off season. And so, yeah, it's definitely different now. But Kyle, I mean, Nick Saban was a coach up until 2 months ago. And you ever been to a Nick Saban practice? I mean, those guys get coached hard. Been to a Kirby practice? They get coached hard. Okay, great players love to be coached. Michael Jordan got coached hard, loved it. Okay, you can still coach them hard. You may have to take care of them off the field more, but you can still coach them hard. I don't think this is about this athlete of today. I think this is about how they look. Can they line up properly? Can we have 11 on the field at all times? Okay, is the program going forward? You've had 2 years. We've given you everything you've wanted. Are we moving forward? That's what I took his comments. I think he thinks they're swimming in place. And I don't. And after 2 years, I think, like he said, I felt I was just voicing what all the fans have been telling me. Kind of like, what the heck's going on? What are we doing?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you this about Titan MRI, and then I'm going to go back to the Saban thing comments. I'm going to get back to Spurrier in a second, and he has a great story about special teams, which you're going to laugh out of, which I played last night. First, thanks to Titan MRI, North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing facility. I'm excited to let you know Titan MRI is now open, serving the greater Gainesville and North Central Florida area, focused on you, the patient, having a great customer service experience, and willing to change their schedule. If you'd like to go at night or weekends, they'll change their hours for you, for your time. So go on to TitanMRI.com, find out more about more people are going up there. No insurance, no problem. Cash your card accepted, same-day service. TitanMRI.com. Well, Nick Saban supposedly said in this interview that he was talked about after they lost to Michigan, when things began to turn for him, apparently. Quote, I was really disappointed in the way the players acted after the game. You got to win with class, you got to lose with class. Then showing your ass and being treated and being frustrated and throwing helmets and doing stuff like that. I thought our team would have a hell of a year. And maybe 70, 80% of the players you talk to, all they want is to know two things. What assurances do I have that I'm going to play? Because they're thinking about transferring it. And how much you're going to pay me. So I'm saying to myself, maybe this doesn't work anymore. I imagine a lot of the older coaches are asking themselves those questions, David. And I don't know if there was some of that in Steve's comments or not, but the game has changed. It's way past me a long time ago, but it's changed a lot of people.
Totally.
Totally. Your thoughts about Saban?
And well, first off, I mean, listen, I got a phone call from somebody in mid-July during SEC Media Days saying, don't be surprised if this is Nick's last year. So Nick didn't just decide, because of how players acted after losing the semifinal. He had been thinking about this.
Sure.
But there's no doubt that, yeah, it's different now. And you could see where you get tired of it. I mean, Chip Kelly quit being a head coach and said, yeah, what it takes to be a head coach right now doesn't interest me. Because it's all about recruiting. It's recruiting money and it's recruiting players. And I'm not into that. I'm into drawing up plays. Okay. And out X and O the other guy. And so I really don't want to be a head coach anymore.
Well, we might have lost the Gilded Age I remember your friend Gary Danielson telling me way back when in 2006 and 7, we've just now seen everything change in college football. The SEC will dominate now. That's they sort of win a national championship. I said, why, Gary? Because they got the coaches and they got the quarterbacks. Now, all of a sudden, some of these really good coaches are having second takes, are getting aged out. New guys coming in, it's done by committee. They hire a bunch of people like they do. I mean, things have changed. I sure hope it doesn't change the game that way, Kyle and David. And I just wonder what you hear in that voice as well.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it still comes down to X's and O's, but I'm starting to think of, Billy Napier during his tenure, he's been trying to make this as much of a professional organization as possible, and it's more becoming a GM job rather than a head coach job, as you were relating to Chip Kelly drawing up X's and O's, and rather doing that. It's more organizational and being able to delegate. All right, we want this guy in the transfer portal, being able to grab that guy recruiting and figuring it out it that way rather than actually on the field. So, there's debatably more off-season work rather than more in-season work. So, it's a completely different game, and the whole NIL aspect of it, it's going to bring a whole new era of coaches in, and I think that you're going to see all of the Nick Sabans and stuff like that. I mean, even with Dabo Swinney, who didn't even it took him a little while to even accept the whole transfer portal, everything like that. And, you've seen Clemson drop off the past few years. So it's a new era, and, you're going to have to change, or you're going to be left behind.
All right, David, before you came on, there was a lot of conversations about money. As you know, I'm sure on your show in the mornings, the Miller at Moulton, if you haven't heard it, you should check it out, folks. Do a really good job of covering the whole sports scene. And the big issue now is money. And, of course, there was this notion that Florida had been left at the gate and they messed up things NIL-wise, and they did, and that their money situation was dire and they wouldn't be able to afford to go out and procure players. Well, I had an interview this morning and played it tonight with Freddy Weeby. He's the new chief of revenue for Florida Victorious. Mm-hmm. He still has his restaurant with Steve Spurrier. Freddy's a smart business guy and knows what he's talking about. Very, very smart guy. And so we talked about money, David, and I want to know what you're hearing about it, and tell you that Freddie gave me some assurances, and Freddie didn't BS about this, about what's going on with NIL money. And what has been your take on that, David?
Well, I'll just repeat what Freddie, we did an interview with Freddie. It was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah. And he actually called me. He had just been put in charge of Florida Victorious. Right. And he called me and said, I want to get the word out. I know there are some people that don't want me doing interviews, but I think we need to get the word out, number one. And number two, we have a little bit of an image problem, and I'd like to correct it. And Freddie didn't even refer to it as NIL. He said it's pay for play now. Let's not kid ourselves. It's pay for play. Mm-hmm. And he basically said, listen, we're not broke. There was a headline out there, we're broke. We're not broke. Right. We just only have 50% of the money we need. Mm-hmm. Okay. He goes, so obviously at 50% of the money we need, we want to win at a high level. 50% is not helping us. That's going to keep us closer to where we are now. So Freddie's like, and Freddie acknowledged that, listen, there are a lot of people not giving money because they're not enamored with the head coach. And he's trying to convince them, listen, you're donating to the program, whether Billy's the coach or somebody else is the coach. And we've talked about this now, buddy, for a year on this show. And I know it frustrates the heck out of Allie when she's on. She's like, listen, this is not about Billy Napier. It's about the Florida Gators. That's who you're giving money to. And I've seen the billboards. I've driven around the state in the last few weeks. I've seen them in about 3-4 different parts of the state, just trying to get the word out. And, the billboards I've seen had Steve Spurrier's picture on it. And if you're trying to get money for the Florida Gators, that's probably, either him or Tebow, that's who I'd put on a billboard.
And they're on it, by the way. Tebow's on it, and also Burfle's on one to some, too.
There you go.
Well, and matter of fact, David, he called me and got your number, but he said, told me today, he said you did a very good interview with him. He appreciated it very much. And so I think Freddie's a smart guy. I said, I don't
He's
know
very
many.
smart. He's
I
an
don't,
adult. I mean, not to sound too simplistic, but he's an adult. Okay, he's a very successful businessman who also is very busy, so he doesn't have the time to mess around. He knows what it takes to be successful. He took a look at the situation. He's like, we need to do this, this, and this. I'm going to do it. We're going to do the best we can, and then I'll probably go back to doing the 3 other things that I do. But he's doing it out of his love for the University of Florida.
He is.
And he's hoping to make a difference. And there's no doubt a couple of early season wins, I think, would really help the cause. Here's something that I'm wondering. Is Todd Golden's success in year 2 going to help the AD at all?
Yeah.
No,
so.
I'm serious.
No, I get it. I totally get it. I get it. I get it.
By the way, this team could be sneaky dangerous.
Great. Really good.
Okay. I mean, this year. I mean, forget next year.
Elite 8 type team.
Yeah. If this team can get to week 2, because in theory they're going to be a 6 seed, so they're going to have to, pull a small upset in the second round to get to the Sweet 16. But with their depth, and they can play 2 different styles, and if they can get to week 2, that's going to be a tough out for a lot of teams. But I'm just wondering if this allows Strickland. If this team, let's just say they make the Sweet 16, does Strickland then be able to, in the summer and the fall, look at everybody and say, listen, I really do know how to hire coaches, but it took 2 years in basketball. It takes a little longer in football. Can you just give us a little more time? I'm wondering if there's any correlation at all. Just wondering.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think maybe Kyle is too. He certainly is going to ask for the grace, no doubt about it. And he may get it. And there's a lot of people. I've talked to one very significant reporter who just is so down on this program that thinks they're just basically toast. I don't agree with that. But nonetheless, there was a lot of that going. And the negativity, once it starts spinning, it's tough to bring it back in.
Kyle hit it on the head. Okay, the only thing that changes it is wins. I mean, what changed it for Mike Norvell? He was 8-13 2 years in, and he was 4-3 in mid-October, year 3. What turned it around? A 19-game winning streak. That's what turned it around. I mean, you got to start winning.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good conversation tonight, and good last night about money, and absolutely think. I think that Freddie tells me, he says, "Look, if you knew what I knew, probably told you that too." He said, he said, if you knew what I knew, he said, in 2 years, this will all be fixed. That's what he said. I'll go ahead.
Well, I mean, ever since Florida Victorious has, Freddie's taken over, I've noticed a change over campus too. I mean, obviously the Swamp restaurant, one of the most, famous spots in Gainesville for students and everything like that. At the end, whenever you cash out, I went and had lunch there the other day. When you cash out at the end of your, they give you your option, give you your seat or whatever. They ask if you want to round up to Florida Victorious. So Florida Victorious made a deal with, Swamp. And I mean, even if it's 85 cents here and there, if, you have, it adds up over time. So, there's signs all throughout campus, stuff like that. So the fact that, it's also being, translated throughout the student body that, it is pay for play. I think it's good that, the word's finally getting out and that you're actually being able to get in touch with students, whether it's, you go have a few beers at Swamp and, oh yeah, I'll donate $5 to Florida Victorious. Like, what's another $5 or something like that? So, and, all it takes is one night or 2 nights or something like that to, make a difference and, string a few of those together and, we could really have something. So I think they're definitely in the right direction, trending upwards. But yeah, so I'm confident with Florida Victorious, and I think that Freddie's, definitely doing the right thing.
Final thoughts, David?
He's organized. Kyle hit on something that Freddie really wanted to do. He wanted to get the word out. He said, people don't know what our NIL program is. That's why we're going to do the billboard. So even the little deal that he made with the restaurant, it's not the 16 cents that you round up. It's the fact that the table of 4 now goes, oh, is that what that is? Florida Victorious. Oh, that's right. And then the word spreads, and the word spread. And then you see the billboard, and so Freddie's, got to he's got to accomplish a lot in a short time here. He's got to get the word out. Yes, he's got to raise money, but also he has to change the perception and the image. That headline a month ago, Florida's broke.
Devastating.
Well, it's also absurd. I mean, it's a top 5 athletic department in the country, has been for a generation or more. It routinely puts money back in the general student fund. The athletic department's not broke. The NIL right now is underperforming, and it's been well documented. For 12 to 18 months, they screwed it up.
So
absurd. I mean, it's a top 5 athletic department in the country.
What was that? I don't know. Heard it twice. Good stuff, David. Yeah. Was that Allie coming in over the rafters? Okay, David, tell folks about how you get your show and what you got on tomorrow.
Hoping one day to be in Gainesville, by the way, but millerandmoulton.com. That's how you can stream the show, and we do 4 hours, and we podcast every hour shortly after the fact. So millerandmoulton.com.
All right, Kyle, you have a good week. Good to talk to you again. Thanks, fellas. Good job tonight. And we're learning all about this.
Yes, sir. Nice talking to you guys.
All right, thank you. David Moulton and Kyle Curtis on the program tonight. Always glad to have them on. Miss Allie, catch her next week. And meanwhile, we'll be back here tomorrow night, same time, same station. We'll remind you of our sponsors tonight. You heard obviously from Jeffrey Meldon and from TitanMRI.com. And we remind you that about our friends also at Rinstar Medical Research. It's a special group of people, and they've been supporting this program a long time, and they do good things in the community. They want you to know about the importance of clinical trials. They exist today because they bring new therapies to the public safely, and clinical trials would not exist without the commitment from you and you volunteers. So you're important. So they want you to volunteer if you're available and can. To check them out, go to rinstar.net and find out about their clinical trials, how you can volunteer for them. In some cases, time and travel is paid for. And if you decide to participate, you may receive study-related medications and procedures at no cost to you or your insurance company. We also gain new investigational medications or devices that are not otherwise available to people and receive compensation for your time and travel. Rinstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers for the health questions of today. Thanks to Freddy Weeby. Thanks to David Moulton. Thanks for Kyle Curtis. Thank you for listening and watching. Back tomorrow night, Orange and Blue Bloods with the gang. Check us out right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.